Hey guys, I'm Drago, and welcome to a brand new series. I am making a Pokemon fan region, also known as a fakemon region, and it is called the Waru Region. I've based it off of Australia, because Australia is one of my favourite places in terms of all the wildlife they have, and I love how diverse it is with its biomes. You know, it has the outback, it has grasslands, it has jungles, it has the reefs. It even has snowy mountainous areas. It's so diverse and it has so much opportunity with it. And I'm honestly surprised Game Freak hasn't made an Australian region yet. But either way, I'm making one myself for fun. And I thought, why not take you guys on the journey along with me? And that's what today's video is, the start of this series where I make this fakemon region. Now, I have come up with names for the games. And I say games in air quotes because I can't code to save my life. So these aren't going to be actual games that I make. But I still think it's fun to think of these in terms of being a game and design it that way with all the lore and the game features and mechanics and stuff like that. So here are the two names for the games, that being Pokemon Amber and Pokemon Opal, which will come into play for the two legendaries that you will see later on. But where do we start when making a Fakemon region? Well, simply we start with the starters. And I base my 3 starters on different animals that are found within Australia. So without further ado, let's get on with it. First up, we have our grass starter. This one is based off an emu, and its name is Stikling. Now, Stikling are small land birds that are born into a world where they need to get going quickly. As soon as they're born, they have to find a twig to stick into their feathers, because this is how their mothers will actually recognise them as their offspring. If a Stikling fails to find a twig in time, then the mother will actually abandon them, and the Stikling will have to live the rest of its life completely alone, and will unfortunately often get picked off by predators. Though sometimes you can still find these sad Stikling roaming around that have been abandoned by their mothers, and quite often they will still find a twig to put in their feathers in a last-ditch attempt to be recognised by some mother, even if it's not their own. But quite often it doesn't work. Now for its design, I wanted to go for something that looked quite pathetic, so I gave it a hunched pose, I gave it silly little legs, I gave it eyes that look really sad and pathetic, and just everything about it is just small and puny. But at the same time, you can still see how this thing would grow up into something powerful, because of course emus are very powerful land birds. With it being a grass starter, I made the colour scheme quite green, but I also tried to make it a little bit different from normal grass starters, so I made it a little bit less saturated green, a bit of a duller green, and I made the legs and beak also a sort of dullish greyish sort of colour, greyish brown, kind of yellowish as well, just in general trying to make it a bit more unique. Next up, we have our fire starter. This guy is called Wallate, and he's based off a wallaby. Now, Wallates are known as the grumpy Pokemon for a reason. They absolutely hate everything and everyone. They are constantly frowning and glaring, and they will always find a reason to hate you. When they glare at you, their fiery eyes can actually produce a burning sensation within your body, and if they stare at you for a prolonged period of time, this can actually become quite unbearable, to the point that you have to leave the area. For the design, I wanted to lean into the grumpiness, so I gave it an upside down smile mouth to show, it's grumpy. And I gave it those half eyes, which also portray the emotion that I wanted. As well as it being sat down indignantly with its arms crossed, as if you've gotten in its way and it's mad at you for that. Everything is an inconvenience to this guy, and I wanted to show that off in the pose. As for the colours, it being a fire starter, that meant reds, oranges, yellows. Again, I wanted it to be a bit more unique. So I went with more of sort of an orangey red for the main colour, and then from there just laid down different tones and hues in a way that I thought looked nice. Mainly I didn't want anything to be too contrasting, but at the same time I wanted a few areas to really stick out, such as the eyes being bright yellow. And I also thought that splash of white for the eyebrows would be really nice as well, because it's just a nice contrast to everything else, and it means that not everything is going to blend into the main colour scheme. Our final starter is of course the water starter, and this guy is based off a platypus, and it's called the shocked Pokemon for a reason. Absolutely no one knows why this Pokemon seems to be in a constant state of shock. The leader theory is that it's to do with a defense mechanism, that maybe if sudden outbursts of shock are enough to scare off any potential predators. But those are just theories. I really wanted to exaggerate the shocked expression in both its pose and its facial features. So I had the arms outstretched, the legs apart, and I made sure it had really huge eyes with also really small pupils, which exaggerated the shocked expression. And I had two frills on the top of the eyes that could mimic raised eyebrows. In a way, I wanted this guy to look a bit cartoony, to really show the expression I was going for and the emotion. And it's also quite a unique vibe to have him be this bit more slightly cartoony than as well. As for his colour scheme, being a water starter, I made him blue. I used both a lighter blue and a darker blue, just to mix and match a bit. And because of its final evolution, which you will see if you stick around, I also added some yellow into him. Now that's all 3 starters made, take a look at them and let me know in the comments down below which one you would pick. Would you choose Stikling, the abandoned Pokemon, Wallate, the grumpy Pokemon, or Pushock, the shocked Pokemon? Make your choice and let me know in the comments down below. And now it's time to see what your choice will evolve into. The next evolution of Stikling is Banbird. Banbird is known as a fringe Pokemon due to its long moss-like feathers that are hanging down over its face and eye, almost looking like a fringe. It's a very shy Pokemon, and it's been hardened to a harsh life due to being abandoned in its previous stage. But despite that, it still carries around its stick that it's had from birth as a memory of a better life. Now naturally, the evolution of Stikling was to extend the feathers a bit more, make the proportions a little bit bigger in places, and just in general make it look like it's grown up, while at the same time still giving the sage some unique features. So the stick is now held in the beak. The eye, while still slanted to look sad, now has what looks more like a bag under it rather than tears, and this time I added some patterns to the feathers, just to give the design a bit more oomph, because otherwise it looked a little bit plain. I also darkened all the colours, which you'll see why in a minute, but in this evolution line the colours do gradually darken as it goes. And the final stage of the grass starter is Emurillow, the moss Pokemon. Emurillow is a large flightless bird Pokemon, and it can be found stalking the swamps of the Waru region. Its feathers droop down almost like a willow tree, but they also look and feel like moss. Its head feathers have now grown to completely conceal its face other than its beak sticking out, and its useless wings, as it can't fly, hang down by the side of its body, and they will often sway and flow gently in the breeze. Its stick is now being carried on one of its feet, and as it walks through the swamps, it will leave uneven footsteps, as it will put its foot down on top of the stick to take a step, and then lift it back up with the foot again, leaving an odd imprint. It lives its life in complete solitary, and despite its spooky appearance, it is a very, very calm Pokemon. Quite frankly, it's probably more scared of you than you are of it. It just wants to live its life in the swamp, do what it wants to do on its own, and be left alone. Now in this stage the colours get even darker, and they actually get significantly darker to show that it becomes a mossy-like texture, and also to show how it can fit into a dingy, swampy environment. Adding on to that, it has now evolved to have the dark type alongside grass. It would likely have a special move involving using its stick in some way, probably jabbing you with it, likely called stick jab or something, or branch jab, as at this point the stick is a bit bigger. Next up we have the middle evolution of Wallate. This is Teenabey, the bored Pokemon. Teenabey are always in a constant state of boredom. As a result, they often get up to mischievous things to try and cure that boredom, and this often involves a new flame they have on the end of their tail. These Pokemon will often go around the brushes of the outback and will set them alight just for pure entertainment. A lot of wildfires in the Waru region are actually caused by these guys. That means that they are unfortunately often cold in the wild, and Wallates are now more domestically bred, but wild ones are a very rare sight. To show off its bored look, I still gave it the half slanted eyes, and I had it sticking out its tongue to show a bit of boredom, a bit of mischief as well. I had it hunched over and its arms dangling down, almost in resignation because it just can't find anything to do. I wanted to naturally evolve its patterns, so the sort of wavy fire pattern on the stomach, I added in some dots as well, to somewhat also allude to how the Waru region is based off Australia, where there's a lot of Aboriginal culture there. And in my research, I found that a lot of Aboriginal patterns use a lot of circular shapes. So I think adding dots and circles work quite well for fitting this into the region. As for his colours, I made him a bit more vibrant than the previous evolution, to show a bit more heat being built up inside. As it evolves, so does its fire abilities, and its colours reflect that. Especially in the tail, where the pattern now gets lighter the closer it gets towards the flame. final evolution for the Firestarter Pokemon is Boomaroo, the boomerang Pokemon. Come on, I had to have something that was using a boomerang. This tall Pokemon has a very muscular and powerful tail. It often holds it in its hand and will whip it forward in order to send out a boomerang-shaped flame. This flame is capable of burning and cutting through almost anything, and it's the Boomaroo's primary attack. This firefighting Pokemon is very loyal to its trainers, but will often have fun throwing its boomerang tail around and causing destruction, because why not? I did initially have the belly pattern be one way, but then I realised it kind of looked a bit like cheese, especially with the colour it would have been, so I changed it to be a bit more fire-like like the other evolutions. As for its pose, I wanted it to look quite proud, and I wanted it to be in a pose ready to throw its boomerang tail. So I had one arm out aiming, and the other arm back holding the tail ready to throw. I gave it dark line patterns across the chest to make it look a bit like it's wearing some kind of armour or clothing or something that could be related to having a weapon and storing ammo for it, but in a more primitive sense. Overall, the design has a much darker colour scheme as the other evolutions, the bright parts being where the fire is or the fire patterns are, just to really draw your eye to it being a fire type and the powerful heat that comes from this Pokemon. The next evolution of Pushock is Enerplati. Enerplati is the buzzing Pokemon, and it absolutely never sits still. This Pokemon is always moving, and that's because it can never ever expend all the energy it has. It will flap around with its large flippers, just having the time of its life. It is now starting to show some tendencies that you will see in the final evolution, such as the lightning bolt-esque frills above the eyes, almost making eyebrows, whereas its normal darker blue frills have become bigger. Its exclamation mark pattern on its chest is now also a bit like a lightning bolt, and you'll see why in a minute. I also gave it some indications of fur, such as on the legs, because platypus do have hair. The colour scheme remained mostly the same, a bit more saturated than the previous evolution, but in general the same sort of idea. Finally, we have the last evolution for this video and the final evolution of the water starter, Platilectric. Platilectric is now a water electric type. It is an absolutely huge Pokemon, and due to its sheer size, it's never challenged in the water. No predators dare touch this thing. Its main feature is how it now has 2 tails. These tails have skin like rubber, and Platilectric will rub them together really fast in order to create powerful electric charges. It can electrify entire bodies of water with this, making it easy for it to catch its fish prey. Now, as I was drawing this, I realised I was actually giving it too many features, and it was starting to look a bit like a legendary, which of course this is just a normal 3rd evolution, not a legendary, so I had to tone it down a bit. And I did that by making the lightning bolt eyebrows a bit shorter and simplifying the front flippers, as well as removing the spikes of fur that I wanted going on the back, but I realised it didn't really work because platypus have very slick fur that sticks to their body, so keeping it smooth would actually make more sense. As for the colour scheme, I wanted the tones to be darker but still quite saturated, so the dark blue I made a lot darker than the previous evolutions, and the main lighter blue I still dulled down a little bit. The yellowish grey of the beak and the flippers I also made a lot darker, and this was all so that the bright yellow of the electric parts would really stand out. That way your eye is drawn to them and you can see that yes, this is an electric type. And I really like how that contrast turned out. And there we have it. Those are the starters for my Pokemon fan region, the Waru region based on Australia. Let me know what you think of them down below, and again let me know which one you would choose. Did your choice change from your original choice based on the evolutions? Let me know down below. And guys, if you want to see more of me making this fan region, then do leave a like on the video so that I know you are interested, and do subscribe so you don't miss out. A huge shout out to my members. I appreciate you guys, thank you so much for supporting me. It means the world. And if you want some more exclusive content, then make sure to become a member. And thank you all so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, leave a like and maybe subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I hope to see all of you wonderful people in the next video. Bye!